When Uncle Charlie died of old age, Bill was bequeathed his uncle's prized Amazon parrot. The parrot was fully grown, but he had a bad attitude. Every word he said was extremely rude. Well, Bill tried hard to change the bird's attitude and was constantly saying polite words, playing soft music, anything he could think of to try and set a good example. Well, nothing worked. So he yelled at the bird, but the bird just got louder. He shook the bird, but the bird just got more angry and rude. In a moment of desperation, Bill put the parrot in the freezer. He heard the bird squawking, kicking, and screaming. Then suddenly, all was quiet. Bill was frightened that he might have killed his uncle's prized parrot, so he quickly opened the freezer door. The parrot calmly stepped out on Bill's arm and said, "I'm truly sorry that I've defended you with the way I've been behaving. I ask for your forgiveness. From this day forth, I will correct my behavior and be the best of birds." Bill was surprised by the sudden change. He was about to ask what caused it, but then the parrot continued, "May I ask what the chicken did?" I was a little nervous y'all wouldn't get it. The chicken was in the freezer. Anyways, we just got through Christmas, spending time with family and friends and making it through those awkward moments with relatives we only see once a year. I'd imagine there are some relatives who can be like this parrot. Perhaps they talk too much and don't know when to stop, or they're just rude. Sometimes relatives, they can bother us because they're not living holy lives. And then sometimes we may bother them when we're not living holy lives. And if you're wondering what a holy life looks like, we get an example of it in our first reading. We're presented with some wisdom from the book of Sirach. The theme is honoring your father and mother. And when one does, in short, they're blessed. Sirach said, "He stores up riches who reveres his mother, and kindness to a father will not be forgotten." The holy, the blessed life is the one that's lived according to God's commandments. And this is what Joseph and Mary are doing in our gospel. They live according to the law of God. We heard the story of the presentation, the day when Mary went to the temple to be purified 40 days after the birth of Jesus, and to present Jesus to God as her firstborn child. Well, Mary, being without sin, she didn't need to be purified. She did this to honor God and fulfill the law that was handed down by Moses. And I would say, though, that what Mary does here is really a mark or attribute of the Holy Family. God was the center of their lives. They lived according to His laws. And in their faithfulness to Him, they were able to sanctify their everyday lives. And this is what we're called to do, brothers and sisters, to look for the opportunities that God gives us to sanctify our everyday lives. It's not always easy, though, especially when we find ourselves in situations with people we don't really like. But even that can be an opportunity if we have the right frame of mind. Take Therese of Lisieux, for example. There was a sister in her convent who she said had the knack of rubbing her the wrong way. Everything about the woman, it struck her as unlovable. But then Therese said this. She said, "She's a holy religious. God must love her dearly. So I wasn't going to let this natural antipathy get the better of me. I reminded myself that charity isn't a matter of fine sentiments. It means doing things. So I determined to treat this sister as if she were the person I loved the best in the world. Every time I met her, I used to pray for her, offering to God all her virtues and her merits. I felt certain that Jesus would like me to do that, because all artists like to hear their work praised, and Jesus, who fashions men's souls so skillfully, doesn't want us to stand about admiring the facade. He wants us to make our way in till we reach the inmost sanctuary, which is His chosen dwelling, and admire the beauty there. But I didn't confine myself to saying a lot of prayers for her. This sister who made life such a tug-of-war for me, I tried to do her every possible good. When I felt tempted to take her down with an unkind retort, I would put on my best smile instead and try to change the subject. In a certain sense, St. Paul, he encourages us to live this way. He says to put on, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. But above all these, he says to put on love. Jose Maria Escriva, he once commented on this, saying, when a Christian carries out with love the most insignificant everyday action, that action overflows with the transcendence of God. That is why I have told you repeatedly and hammered away once and again on the idea that the Christian vocation consists in making heroic verse out of the prose of each day. Heaven and earth seem to merge on the horizon, but where they really meet is in your hearts, when you sanctify your everyday lives. And some of those insignificant everyday actions that he's speaking of could just be our daily work when it's done out of love for God, or when we're with other people, whether we get along with them or not, we can be kind and caring towards them. Like Therese, we can love them for the sake of God. I'd say that an obstacle that we encounter today, though, is that it can be hard to find role models to teach us how to live like this. Many people, they come from broken families. Family members may not be living very holy lives, and children may desire holiness more than their parents, and so they don't have anyone to show them the way. But the church today, it gives us the example of the Holy Family. And as a model, the Holy Family teaches us that the key to sanctifying our everyday lives is by living in the presence of God. And they quite literally did this with Jesus. Their attitude toward him, Joseph and Mary's attitude toward Jesus, obviously it was parental, but they were humble. They knew that they were both parents and disciples of their Son, and they were always ready to learn from him. For example, think about Jesus when he was in the temple. After 3 days, his parents found him there, and they expressed their worry. And he responded, "How is it that you sought me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" And then we're told that Mary pondered these things or kept them in her heart. Well, like Mary, and I'm sure Joseph, we need to ponder the things of God in our hearts. Each day we could meditate on a different mystery of our Lord's life. Teresa of Avila, she once said that we should occupy ourselves in looking at him who is looking at us. Keep him company, talk with him, pray to him, humble ourselves before him, have our delight in him. And in our prayer, she says that we should speak to our Lord as with a father, a brother, a lord, and a spouse, and sometimes in one way and sometimes in another. He'll teach you what you must do to please him. Remember how important it is for you to have understood this truth, that the Lord is within us and that we should be there with him. Some of us learn these things from our families and some of us didn't. But Christ, he invites us to be part of his family, and we can learn from the Holy Family how to live in the presence of God. In the order of grace, Mary and Joseph, they're our parents. And despite being holy and perfectly fulfilling the will of God, they still had their everyday struggles, their ups and downs. But in those struggles, they found the means to sanctify their lives. And we can do this too by looking for Christ and the good and the bad things in life. I'd say it becomes a little bit easier when we're actually living in the presence of God, because when we're living in the presence of God, we're always aware of him, and we're aware of his love for us. And that love helps us to accept the trials and sufferings in life, and it inspires us to do works out of love for him. And if we live our lives in this way, it'll not only sanctify us, but it'll inspire and affect those closest to us, our families and friends, and God will show them through us how to live their lives for him.